Success, Part 2, The Royal Tenenbaums. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the New to You Show. We are continuing our series of success. The New to You Show is a recommendation and review podcast where we watch stuff and recommend it to you.
On a theme.
Yeah. So our topic this week is success. I'll let everyone, we talked about a little bit of the genesis of it, and we'll let everyone kind of pitch how their stuff is in the world of success when we get into our topics. Before that, I'm one of your hosts, John Holt. With me,
one of your other hosts, Keith Vincent.
Your third host, Julian Cage, and our special guest,
Jocko Farino. Hey, everyone.
Hey, Jocko.
Hello.
It's great having you back on.
It's great to be back.
Cool. Last week we had The Secret, and this week it hasn't all quite come to us yet, but you just got to give it time.
No. It's been it takes 2 weeks, right?
Well, I imagined
That's right.
30 days. Give it 30 days.
I imagined a positive review on iTunes, and then I wrote it.
Well, see, though, that you didn't, because if you took action, then that's not The Secret. That means you did the thing.
But I didn't think I would do it. I surprised myself.
Yeah.
Good job, man.
He just sat at the keyboard.
The Secret's awesome.
And
it just worked.
Automatically wrote it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's as if the inner critic in you spoke through you.
That's right.
He gave it 4 stars.
If you didn't listen last week, don't. It wouldn't help much. You're getting it.
Yeah. No, you know what The Secret is.
Yeah. Shh. They don't want you to listen to last week's episode.
I don't want you to have your spine adjusted by a professional doctor.
They would rather you languish in negativity and not rise above and be one with the universe.
The Secret. All right, so let's cleanse our good thoughts and get into our pick for this week. Keith, let's roll right into your pick.
This way of talking, and then we have another, apart from what we wish to say.
There were 3 extraordinary children in the Tenenbaum family.
I said sell it, yeah.
Chaz Tenenbaum was a financial expert and started buying real estate in his early teens. Margot Tenenbaum was an acclaimed playwright and won a Pulitzer Prize in the 9th grade. Richie Tenenbaum was a champion tennis player ranked 2nd in the world by age 17. They were brilliant. They were famous. They were unlucky enough to be the children of a man named Royal Tenenbaum.
Are you getting divorced?
It doesn't look good.
It was actually my suggestion to talk about success. I think we touched on this last week, that I was thinking, it'd be kind of funny for us to talk about things that we've, suggested either on the show or had suggested to us from people on the show, to kind of revisit those things or to kind of, discuss their impact. As we were filling up our document talking about what we would discuss, it seemed very clear that point didn't get across. But I was able to work both into my pick. So this is a movie about success, but it was also a successful suggestion to me by, I think, John Holt. I think John Holt originally suggested I see this movie.
Did we see it in a theater?
No, I think you were living in San Francisco at the time. 2001 it came out. But I remember we were discussing it, and I had already liked the Wes Anderson movies, but this one you told me to see, if I remember correctly. And I went to see it, and then I just this is one of the first movies since Batman in 1989 that I went back to see several times in the theater. And I probably saw this movie 3 or 4 times in the theater. I loved it. Right. And it just gets better in age. But it's called The Royal Tenenbaums. It's directed by Wes Anderson. Came out in 2001.
With the second feature.
Nope. It was his third. It was Bottle Rocket.
Oh, right.
Bottle Rocket, then
Royal Tenenbaums.
Rushmore. That's right.
And Rushmore, that's a masterpiece as well. It depends on who you are, but some people might suggest that over this as far as which is the better movie. But I personally like the Royal
I think it's
Tenenbaums.
to use your Batman analogy, it's 89 versus Returns, where
I think it's more like 89 Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1989. Which one's better?
Well, what I mean is that Tim Burton's 89 Batman is a very real-ish, and Rushmore kind of has that more realism in it. It's a little more homage-y. And then Tannenbaum's, like Batman Returns,
Got
is
a little more
much
whimsical.
more Wes Anderson for Tannenbaum's or Burton for Returns.
Right.
I would argue though that Tenenbaums is the more successful
Of the two?
rather than Return.
Oh.
Batman Return, which I thought was a kind of a not so good.
Not a step up.
No, not even a sidestep. Like it was a step down.
You just can't appreciate
Too much Penguin. There's
Michelle,
too much Penguin.
Michelle,
No, not enough Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
Too much Penguin.
yeah.
Such thing. What? Too much Penguin.
I think too much Christopher Walken, but that's just me.
Yeah, maybe that too.
In art school, I mean, Rushmore came out when we were in art school, and it just
Blew
was
our
like
minds.
the secret. Everybody's seen it. Everybody knew about it. Everybody was dressing up like Max Fisher for Halloween, and it was wonderful.
Easy costume.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I mean a green thing with the red.
You
like
could just
a green
put on a
suit.
red beret. And
Yeah,
people
that's
would get
true.
it.
I mean, no doubt, just an amazing breakthrough movie. Such a visual feast and such a style, and that's the thing. So if you don't like Wes Anderson's style, then you're just not going to like any of his movies. But I personally just love his take on movies, and it's gotten more. It's moved more in that direction as he's made more movies. But I just really love his kind of stylized reality. Because everything is so stylized, when there is real emotion, it seems more pointed, more poignant. This was directed by Wes Anderson. This was his third big film, like we discussed. And this was much anticipated by a lot of people, but for some reason I didn't go see it. I think I just watched a bunch of Coen Brothers movies or something. So when this came out, I was just like, I don't have time to see more movies. I've been watching Big Lebowski too much or something like that. But then after on John Holt's suggestion, unless I'm wrong about that, you give me an interesting look. It might have been Plapp that told
I
me.
don't know. I mean, again, we were probably like if we went to see this, we were all in San Francisco.
I didn't see it with you.
You weren't there.
Right, I didn't see it with you. Yeah, because I was still in Boston. I was in. I think I saw this at the Cleveland Circle.
Nice.
Which is
Gone.
I heard not there anymore. So what? Why it's about success is the story is about this one particular family who's basically just a family of like overachievers. At a young age, they had all achieved greatness in their own way and in their own field. Gwyneth Paltrow's character, Margot, became like a really young, promising playwright and was getting grants and being able to write plays at a very young age. Ben Stiller's character, he really kind of succeeded in business and like really took off in that way. Luke Wilson's character was successful at tennis and just kind of became kind of somewhat of a household name, which I think is kind of neat. You see posters of the bomber, in the background. I think is really, really clever. And there's a couple scenes when he's walking around and someone's like, "Bomber!" and he goes, "All right," and he stops for a photo, and it's great. The whole thing is kind of narrated in this kind of whimsical way. Whimsy is a thing that I come back to a lot in a lot of movies that I really like. There's especially if you listen to this podcast, a lot of things that I've suggested kind of have this kind of manufactured reality feel to them that I really like. It's hard to describe.
Heavily production designed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I think there's somewhat, I mean, I would say like cartoonish to some extent, like in that everything is sort of designed and planned the way you would an animated film. There's that level of control over how things come
and that's
across.
especially true in this movie, more so than any of the others, I think. I mean, Fantastic Mr. Fox, obviously, because that is an animation that had to be built from scratch.
I think he's accelerated. Like maybe not Darjeeling, but the more recent one, The Hotel.
Yeah, that's
was
even more of that.
Extremely like. In fact.
But I feel like it was much more vast, so there wasn't the painstaking detail.
At the same time,
applied.
it literally had stop motion in it. Right. And what you get, like you see this with a lot of like early Tim Burton stuff, to go back to this guy, because again, he's a stop motion animator going into film. Everything is composed and feels very tight and staged. And both those Batman movies are very like staged and tight for being full worlds. And the more he gets into his groove, the more sort of tight that stuff is. Like Sleepy Hollow is unsuccessful because it's so confined. And I think with this, like Rushmore and Bottle Rocket are more real, and the artifice of story, like Tannenbaum's is the first one where it is someone opening up a storybook and telling the tale. This is the artifice, and now you have, it adds a frame, like you're saying.
Well, the whole
it's
thing is a
picture
book, and
right.
it each starts with a chapter
Right.
with a little illustration flipped over, and you read the. If you sneak the glance at the text, it's actually the narration. that Alec
Right.
Baldwin is about to read.
And then what you get with the hotel, I'm totally blanking on the name, but yes,
Grand Budapest.
Grand
Yes.
Budapest is it's like a story within a story. Like there are at least 2 or 3 levels of removal.
Narrations from this
Right.
person who's narrating. Yeah.
And so you just it's like that Bjork video where every layer
it's a new
loses
book.
detail and gains stylization, and his sort of movies, you can see that extrusion as he plays with those ideas and gains more control, and to the point where he'll make scenes, like especially highly intense scenes, like in I'm like blanking on every name of his movie, but the one with Bruce Willis on the island and
Moonrise Kingdom.
The Rock, but Bruce Willis on the island, The Rock.
No, that was.
I know.
Yeah.
Sean
Nicolas
Connery on
Cage.
the island with the
Nicolas
sword, and
Cage.
it can be only one.
Mhm. Yeah. Christopher Lambert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, so that the Moonrise Kingdom is also like, it just, he has a little more like realism in that one, but then they'll have these moments where it's like dolls, in a wide
Like a
shot.
silhouette. Yeah. Well, I think that, we can definitely talk about the overarching thing, but I feel like something about Moonrise Kingdom felt the most stagey, the most like a play than any of the others.
Because it's supposed to be like amateurs, like very much a children's play.
Yeah, and the actors are, they weren't very coached to act naturally. They feel very like performance-y. But getting back to Royal Tenenbaums, I feel like this is the first one where he planted that seed. There's certainly some very stylized acting in Rushmore, but I really feel like somebody saw parts of that in Rushmore, and he kind of went with it in this, where he's just like, every character is going to have like a uniform. Every character is going to kind of have a whole room built around them, and it's going to, they're just going to be almost a cartoon. Every character is almost a cartoon, going back to what Jules said.
Yeah, I feel like it's the first time he probably had the budget and the backing of his vision to just go for it.
Yeah. So what happens is all the main characters in the family had reached an amount of success at an early age, and now they're kind of in the aftermath of that. And that's what's interesting about it, because he as a filmmaker reached success on a lot of different levels at a very early age, and I'm sure he was probably kind of seeing like, now what? And so that's that. And the Wilson brothers both too. And this was co-written by Owen Wilson, which, I think Owen Wilson's probably getting a bad shake considering he's in a lot of these subpar movies now. But man, he co-wrote Royal Tenenbaums, and you can feel it, because the movies he hasn't been on with Wes Anderson, the movies he hasn't because he co-wrote Rushmore as well. But the movies that he didn't co-write with him, they don't feel as fun as this. Even though Life Aquatic is very fun, but it's not. It lost something that I feel like Owen Wilson must have brought to the table.
Yeah, I think these earlier films have more like, even though they're very fantastical, they have a real grounding in, you buy into the characters and their emotions and their motivations.
Yeah.
So that even though it feels, and that part, their emotional lives feels very real. And so that's how what draws you in and sucks you into the story. Whereas I feel like it got more stylized, and the acting and the characters themselves got more stylized, to where it didn't have as much of that grounding.
And it really hasn't. I love Moonrise Kingdom, and I think that there's some real genuine moments in it, but you never feel sad for anyone like you do in this movie. Or
it's also, I think it's a lighter movie.
It's a
overall.
summer movie. Like, it's very much living
that one
in
really
summer.
did charm me somehow. Though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I didn't like it, but certainly there's a scene in this where Gwyneth Paltrow and Luke Wilson are laying together in this tent that he's pitched in the library where he's staying while his father is supposedly convalescing in his room. He gave up his room so his father can stay against the wishes of his family. And I haven't even gotten to Royal Tenenbaum yet. But there's such emotion to that scene when they're playing that Rolling Stones song. Mm-hmm. She's laying with him after a very traumatic moment, and I think that there's none of the movies have reached that emotional height for him since then in my opinion.
Yeah, and all those moments feel earned to some degree.
Yeah, big time.
Sure.
And that might be the payoff in that there was this everything seems manufactured and stilted and presented in a very kind of style. Like I keep coming back to the word style. It's a stylized reality until Luke Wilson's character becomes too human. He becomes very human. And and I think that maybe that's why I find it to be the most successful emotionally of his.
I think, too, there is like a meta level thing where I think the characters, in part because their success was so early that it's sort of a child's vision of what a businessman is,
exactly,
of what a successful writer is like, and so everything's sort of this fantasy version of that, and then for the rest of their lives they kind of
have to try to live up to that.
Right, they're playing this role, and then it takes this traumatic event to kind of shatter those these sort of false fronts that everybody has, and kind of
these childish versions of what success are.
Yeah, and brings everybody back together.
Read into it what you like about what he's trying to say about success. I don't even know if that's even kind of an underlining thing that he's trying to, any kind of statement he's trying to make. I'm not certain, but I do like that the outcome is that these people all reached monetary success. Like money wasn't an issue in any of their lives. But it wasn't until they kind of came together and embraced each other as a family that they really were successful. I think that's kind of neat.
Well, except for Royal, he did have some financial woes.
Right, yeah.
Well, you should talk about him because
so the movie is named after Royal Tenenbaum, the father, who
the patriarch.
Yes, and the whole thing is supposedly a book being narrated by Alec Baldwin, which I believe really did open up a line of employment for him that he would have never imagined. I personally am a huge fan of Alec Baldwin, and a lot of it starts from this movie.
Sure.
I like a lot of his stuff he did, The Shadow, whatever. But this movie, I don't know. He kind of dipped his toe in indie film, and I think and embraced kind of the more comedic elements of his career. And I think ever since he's embraced comedy, I think he's and I don't know if this one came out before. What was the one, Finding Providence or Lost in Providence? Do you remember that movie? Mm-hmm. It was an indie film where he was some guy's dad, and he did this like really great like New England accent. It was really great. Outside Providence is what it's called.
Well, it's interesting because I just heard him, I think on his own podcast, he did a show where someone was interviewing him, and he talked a lot about his career path and stuff, and he kind of went through this. I feel like we're totally going off here, but whatever. Going into the weeds.
Let's go.
But he
get your weed whackers, boys.
But I think it was sort of a transitional moment in his career where he was kind of he was sort of passing that peak of his prime of being the young, like, sexy male lead, and kind of transitioning. And I think he also had his divorce and all this messy stuff in his personal life. So I think he was just working like crazy and trying to find
let's not forget
way.
His brothers were honing in on the business, trying to steal all his roles.
But anyway, back to Royal Tenenbaums.
Yes. So Royal himself was kind of an absentee father. He chose working over, he never really kind of embraced being a family man. And in fact, just the opposite, he left the family high and dry. Though they never got a divorce. He and his wife, played by Angelica Houston, never actually divorced. Angelica Houston, a business partner of hers, finally does propose to her, and that kind of starts the whole movie into motion, where he's like, I think you should divorce Royal because I want to ask you to marry me. So because Royal is then suddenly like, oh wait, nobody can have my wife, it kind of sparks this whole movie starts.
It's the inciting incident.
And because of that, the whole family ends up back together in the house that they grew up in, And a lot of like family history comes, and a lot of really interesting, fun filmmaking. I could talk a lot about the movie. The takeaway is if I were teaching a filmmaking course, this would be like one of my very first films that I would say people should watch. It's filled with clever, economical, efficient ways to tell really neat stories.
It's also a kind of a complicated one to start
Yeah,
with, though.
I think it's a little like
No. For filmmaking, for filmmaking techniques and shots.
It's chock full of stuff. Like
how to make a montage, how to use
I think though like
slow mo.
It's
the best.
It's a very careful balance of like theme and dressing and prop and character, and there's a lot. You could easily go substance over, like style over substance on this, like if you're not careful. And he's made his career on that careful balance, and we've already kind of discussed that sometimes it's not successful. This one is I would almost point someone more towards like a Rushmore or even a Bottle Rocket as like this is character with those tinges of like style. Like here's how you become, like your progression of becoming more stylistic. He figured out how to tell character stories in his quirky way before he like showed you what their room looks like. Like that's like there would be a progression.
Well, there's one particular scene where Ben Stiller's character grabs Gene Hackman's character and pulls him into this closet, and it's filled with board games. And first of all, that set is so amazing. That's another thing. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but the more you watch this movie, the more you discover. It is filled with Easter eggs. It's amazing. And I've seen this movie probably 36 times. I will, without a doubt, discover something new every time I've watched it. But there's a scene where he pulls him into this closet, right? And he reaches for the door and he closes it, and they pull on this little light above, and it's got a little like the light tab is a little Monopoly house, which I think is a neat detail. But if you study that shot, it's so clever in that there's no door there. He pantomimes pulling this door closed, and they just shut off the light. And it's little things like that I'm just saying, like, as a filmmaker, those types of tricks, that type of like cutting, the types of using a long shot that's all one cut versus like these really clever montages and using the music. I mean, the music is the second star of this film.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Either Mothersbaugh's like compositions or the like soundtrack elements are so amazing.
Yeah, I think him and Tarantino both like just always manage to find a song that's already been out there and just totally reframe it and revitalize it and make it incredible. Yeah.
So, Jocko, you've been getting big into the Criterion stuff, and this is one that was actually pretty early in the like Criterion canon, right?
Yeah, it was pretty early on, and this was for me. The film in general was really, really crucial and crucially important to me for a ton of different reasons. I'm a bit younger than you all, and so this hit when I was 15. And it was the first movie that I like loved, that I thought, I don't know, it made me think about movies in a way that I didn't think possible. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to go to school for. I watched Royal Tenenbaums about 5 times and decided I wanted to go for screenwriting. But it also introduced me to Elliott Smith, to Nico, to, the soundtrack had such a huge, I had the soundtrack. I listened to that CD until it was scratched to death. Yeah. It's one of the last remnants of a pre-internet age. The internet was, of course, around in 2001, but I wasn't using it the way that we use it today, and it still felt very physical. Part of that is because of the Criterion DVD. I didn't really realize that you could do that with a DVD, that you could have all of this work that would go into a DVD, all these special features, this beautiful design and packaging. That was the first time I'd heard of Criterion, and it was the first one I ever had, and now I'm a collector. I have a pretty decent collection of Criterion specifically. So
have you upgraded to Blu-ray?
I have, yeah. Not with Royal Tenenbaums. I still got my old DVD, but I should upgrade for sure.
So, what do you remember? Anything specific about either the first time you saw it or the time you were watching something and a flip switched? Like, do you remember, or was there anything specific about that experience?
Yes, absolutely. The first time I saw it, I thought it kind of cracked something open for me. Really, it really did. I didn't know that that a movie could be something that you could think about. Is the best way I can describe it. The moment that I realized, oh, there's a lot going into this, there's a lot that goes into screenwriting, it's actually from one of the special features. They were talking about filming the scene where you first see Margot. These Days starts playing, it's in slow-mo, it gives you shivers, really, yeah.
Yeah, even thinking about it.
Just thinking about it, the sailors walk by in slow motion.
That fake bus, the green bus goes by.
Yep. And just that, there was sort of a step-by-step breakdown in one of the special features, and that was the moment where I realized, and it's very specific for me, I've never ever wanted to be a director. That was the first moment that I wanted to be a writer. I thought, okay, I want to be a screenwriter. Cool. I want to write scenes like this, and yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah. This is like a very, very moving and like important pick to me.
And that's just one scene and there are so many that are just so perfectly composed like that. And every aspect of it is composed when the sailors walk by, when the bus moves,
of course,
when it cranks down to slow-mo, because she comes out in real speed first and then it cranks down to slow-mo. And that movie is just filled with so many gems like that, especially visually and especially with music. It's just so so well
I think
made.
it's also a pretty strong love letter to New York, and but specifically the like New Yorker New York, where it's
Upper
like
East Side New York.
Well, I mean the magazine.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Where
interesting.
it's like their house is a Charles Addams style Addams family household. They are the children with this sort of, there's a darkness to a little twist. There's animals' heads mounted on the in these areas. Everything is decorated. You could cut something out and draw it in pen, and almost every scene could be a one-panel comic. Like the characters are just have a little twist to them, and then it's like the
Margot
homage.
has 9 fingers.
Right. And there's no shame in affluence, which is important to this. So many New York stories are gritty or pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but there's this and like the work of Whit Stillman is about it. Like this and Metropolitan, I can't think of a lot of Metropolitan. Yeah. I can't think of a lot of other things that sort of relish like we are New Yorkers.
Yeah, maybe like Annie Hall.
Sure.
And that's again another like
and unapologetically like we are New York.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean because we are an aspect. Those people are an aspect of New York, especially. At that
he
time.
makes, and it's also like New York of the late '60s, early '70s, because that's when they were like growing up as children, and there's still like flavors of that.
Yeah.
And they're kind of frozen in time a little bit, the characters.
So you get like, they directly reference the mixed up files of Miss Baisley Frankweiler saying that the children had like hidden in the Natural History Museum. Well, one of the big ones, because they play the like Charles Schultz music.
Yeah.
And that's again another like 1960s trope. But you also have something where the children are adults and have like been they're still like they're still Charlie Browns. They're still these young characters, and the adults to some degree some of them are still those characters, but they've kind of been outside of the picture. And you get these. Every scene is is a small panel vignette. Well, you just get these small strips that build a larger story. Like it's very much told in a series of vignettes to some degree. Like it's not like
at least
super
the way
contained.
that's kind of how everything is introduced, I would say.
Correct. Yeah.
And then once everyone's introduced, it kind of gets a little more.
But even then, it's still such a stylized New York. Like they go to the what is it called, like the 300th Street Y or something like that, which would be like way past Yonkers. But like everything is this.
And that ice cream parlor that they go to,
The hotel, Roosevelt, is it? No, that's a real hotel. I forget what it is.
Plaza something.
Yeah.
And the cabs are called gypsy cabs. It says on the side of the cab. Yeah.
There's a dent in that cab. And there's another one. There's another one.
But there's all the characters in those scenes they set up are like New Yorker cartoon characters too. Where they're like,
well, I mean, it's
lovingly
definitely
ribbing them.
like liberal elite too.
Right.
You've got the professor.
Of archaeology, who's like has a dig in the middle of the city or whatever.
The guy studying Dudley, Bill Murray's character, who's married
It's like again another like anthropologist in the city.
Yeah.
Right, and it's pushed so far that it almost feels like it's a it's kind of a send up a little bit also of that because he pushes it so
Yeah, absolutely.
to where it becomes like their
Well, I
caricatures
just want to
of
die.
that. Yeah.
I just love that. Like, well, I just want to die.
I think too, like it really is it's an amazing ensemble cast, and it's pretty long as well and pretty rich. Like it's so rewatchable, and I think it is rewatchable the way a lot of animated films are because it's so dense and packed with detail and packed with characters and stories. Because I actually think, and especially when I first saw it, I was like, I loved it, but I was like, but like Rushmore is the better movie. And in some ways, Rushmore I think is a much tighter movie, and I think it is stronger the first time around.
It's more visceral.
But Royal Tenenbaums is so much more rewatchable. That like Rushmore started to feel, because I've rewatched a lot of his movies a lot of times. Rushmore started to feel a little more like, okay, like I've seen it, like, and showing the seams, whereas like Royal Tenenbaums just has so many layers to it that it rewards multiple viewings a lot more.
And it's got so many little graphics and things that go along with it too that are so great. Like everybody has their own book. Like if you watch
and wallpaper.
Yeah, everyone's got their own book and wallpaper, and like there are record covers at certain points.
And his brother's an illustrator, and he had a hand in a lot of that stuff.
Well, those scenes where it's so Luke Wilson's character was a promising artist, but never met his full potential or something like that, I think is what Alec Baldwin narrates. But it's just pictures of Margot, all these different paintings of Margot. Wes Anderson's brother, I'm sure, painted all those.
Yeah. Well, the best is Owen Wilson's house. He's got the paintings with the like guys in masks.
On the
on the ATVs and three wheelers.
Yeah, and that the artist who painted that got pretty famous after that. Give him a big boost.
Amazing.
But
do you think he's the same guy that painted the family portrait in Rushmore of Bill Murray's family?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, because they're kind
of the
grotesque
twins.
as well.
Exactly.
But yeah, Owen Wilson's character is also hilarious. He kind of plays a friend of the family's that's always wanted to be part of the family. He also reaches.
He's reaching his success just now,
but totally driven by wanting to be one of them.
Yeah.
And so it takes him till adulthood to reach that success, but he kind of then he hits the failure of success during the film, and kind of comes crashing down on them. But he's a great,
very dramatic,
hilarious character.
I love it.
Yeah.
Eli Cash.
What a name! These names are like think about creating from nothing the name Royal Tenenbaum for the patriarch of this family. I think about this so much because it's so ingrained and it's so central to my identity, this movie, really, in a lot of ways, and ingrained in my like history of fiction, that it's like imagining like what was it like to come up with the Canterbury Tales. It's also like what was it like to just come upon the name Royal Tenenbaum.
Yeah, and just say that's the pillar of my movie.
Yeah.
And there's just so many good quotable moments from that film. I mean, because Eli Cash, when he pitches his book,
no, he's doing a book tour. Yeah,
and he pitches, like.
Well, Wildcat was not as successful as the what is it? What is the Young Custer? What's the movie?
Young Custard.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? And he says, Wildcat was kind of written in a obsolete vernacular.
We should go around and say favorite lines. I think that everyone has. Mine for sure is when Royal is talking about Richie after he's attempted to kill himself, and he says, well, he looks good for a suicide.
Not half bad.
Not attempted anyway. And it's like he couldn't even kill himself. It's brilliant. Attempted anyway.
I love that. How long have you been smoking? About 12 years. Well, you should quit. That line ends up being in a lot of Wes Anderson movies. He actually will quote his own movies in a lot of stuff.
Another sort of like contemporary to Wes Anderson, who I think is also very detail oriented and also character ensemble driven, would be like Paul Thomas Anderson.
Sure.
And he, like in Magnolia, just like a scant year prior to this release, had another sort of theme of here is the young prodigy and here is the failed prodigy who is the reflection of that character, like running parallel with like the quiz show kid who is currently there, who is like looking at, you know, himself as looking at 40 and
where
ideas.
he became.
Yeah. And then you have the William H. Macy character who's the like failed quiz show genius. And it's interesting that they were both kind of like looking at genius and where that can go, like whether that's a child's like ideal
concept.
And you know, like that they're like those classic things, like this is a guy who was typing in 3 languages by 18 months or something. That's like a real kid who's ends up working at a grocery store and having a brain aneurysm by like 32. Like that's the kind of like those benchmarks of the early years. So that the thing is, it's only been 100 days, guys. Give him a chance. Right? Like, why judge? Why judge his success by the beginning?
Yeah.
It's the long term we need to look for.
right.
We need to see how he does with the next 7 years.
Genius is a theme in this, though. In that all the kids were called geniuses at different stages, and they each of them in their own way say like, no, I was never a genius. So it was a kind of a neat thing that they kind of balked at that terminology. But it reminds me there was a great Malcolm Gladwell podcast on genius, and he talks about the 2 different ways of defining it, and one way is not often at all very talked about. But there's the genius that we all consider genius, which is like a phenom. Fast, quick, hit hard right out of the gate. But he said, but there's another kind of genius that he compares to Paul Cézanne, the painter, where it's like it's genius, but it's from doing it and doing it and doing it over and over and over again, and eventually
It's the 90% perspiration.
Yeah.
The Edison style genius.
Yeah, and well, Gladwell was definitely the one that made popular that 10,000 hours thing, but I think this is something different. This is more like a genius who struggles with a thing and wrestles with it forever.
Right. There's those aspects of like
Because it'll never be perfect.
like the comedians who are like off the cuff, like this is funny, I'm gonna just like riff and like figure it out, and they may never repeat the same joke twice. And then those comedians who
hone it,
write and try it out and cut it and crimp it and primp it, and they may get to the same spot, but you know it doesn't invalidate either course. It's just they're 2 different ways of approach. Like you're saying, it's a similar approach.
dichotomy. Yeah.
Right.
I kind of thought of that because when I was listening to that podcast, it kind of reminded me of Royal Tenenbaum was never considered kind of a genius, but he kind of kept at it until at the end he really did in a way bring the family back together. You know, it's like even that was his stated goal at the beginning. You know, when
Yeah, he's tenacious.
yes.
Well,
Yes.
he's also like he's kind of the he's streetwise, and he knows how to.
And he's a fraud too. Like he's like a car salesman as well.
He's a fast talker. And he knows how to read people and all that kind of stuff. And everyone else in the family's kind of a nerd.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's because the 2 characters, like the matriarch of the family who really raised the kids, Angelica Houston's character, she's the one that had sort of kind of like pushed them, and like he was never approving of them, but it was almost like more like he wasn't approving of the way
he gave them a thing to try to aspire to, like if they could only please him, and that was one of their driving forces, I feel like, as children.
Yeah, but their mother was showing them a path to do it that was
exactly
very
she was
different
guiding
than
them,
what, like he was just doing what he wanted, and that was Royal's success, was just caution to the wind, like do whatever you want. And to a certain point, that's why even though he's like Richie is it Ricky or Richie is stuck, but he's also more free because he's just off on a boat. Like he's not being happy, but he's outside of that world exploring.
Right.
But he was languishing. A little bit of 2 for real moments. Gene Hackman was an actor who I just couldn't watch him in any movie until this movie. This movie basically unlocked Gene Hackman for me to be able to watch. I just could not stand his voice, and for the longest time I couldn't figure it out, but it was because Superman. When I was a kid, Superman and Gene Hackman was Lex Luthor. I'm like, that's a bad guy.
Wow.
He's always a bad guy. I'm never,
Right.
and it just left like a stain in my brain about Gene Hackman that this movie finally cured. Another for real moment. I was driving on a Greyhound bus up to Boston one time. One of the few times that I didn't take the Chinatown bus. I took a Greyhound bus or Peter Pan or something, I forget. But it was from Penn Station. And the driver, it was going up for Thanksgiving, so they had to have a bunch of different temporary drivers. So this temporary driver got lost. And I ended up looking at the Royal Tenenbaums' house in Harlem. And I was like, I'm lost. We're like an hour and a half behind schedule, but that's the Royal Tenenbaums' house. So I got to see that in real life. It was pretty cool.
I remember him from Cloak and Dagger, where he was played by Dabney Coleman. I always used to confuse Gene Hackman and Dabney Coleman all the time.
I love Dabney Coleman.
He's pretty awesome.
Cloak and Dagger's great, too. It still holds up.
Well, I'd seen like The French Connection,
Yeah.
and I'd seen what's the other, The Conversation, a lot of the like 70s films that he played in. But he is somebody who always he's a strong personality. He always plays kind of big characters, I think, and he kind of strikes you as he might be a jerk in real life, but in Royal Tenenbaums he kind of became the lovable jerk.
Yeah, exactly. He actually studied I think either here in New York or in Chicago with this really kind of famous acting group. He broke through in a way that was like really cool, and that he was just through acting. The guy is not like a handsome guy.
Yeah.
It's just through the chops of his acting.
I mean, he also had to compete with Dabney Coleman. There's a
And how is one supposed to do that, really?
That's right.
I'm like, I don't know who Dabney Coleman is.
Remember the guy from Scrubs who was the doctor who was kind of mean and gruff to them, but also like secretly was really nice and loved them?
Wait, that wasn't Dabney Coleman, was it?
No, but he totally stole all of his stuff from Dabney Coleman. All of his acting.
How do you spell Dabney?
Dabney, D-A-B-N-E-Y.
Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, that guy.
Oh, so one more thing. When we first moved to New York, we were working on a pilot in our house. Like we were animating cell animation in our house. Royal Tenenbaums was a movie we put on almost every single day while we sat in the basement and animated. That's another reason why I've seen this so many times.
Instead of watching or listening to the soundtrack, we would basically just watch the movie.
Right.
Like, sometimes I've watched it with the commentary multiple times.
Yeah.
It
was either that or we watched Moulin Rouge a lot that same way.
Again, another one that's like a soundtrack movie too.
Right.
And another director with Baz Luhrmann, who's very stagey, and about sort of the detail in his things. But
another guy, Joe Wright, is the same way, and that I like him too. He's very stagey kind of.
Yeah. Is this it? Is this your number one? Let's start with Jocko. Is this your number one Wes Anderson movie?
Hands down, just because of the effect it had on me.
Nice.
Not even close.
Jules.
Yeah, I mean, again, mostly because of the repeat viewing thing. I think it's a close to Rushmore for me, but yeah, it still blows me away.
Rushmore, if you were there at the time, the impact it had on everything was pretty remarkable, and that's hard to deny or discount. But I just think that as a person who loves filmmaking and loves to watch movies, there's just so much to see in Royal Tenenbaums, and it's just over and over again. Again, like, I'm not lying when I say every time I've seen that movie, there's something new that pops up that I've never noticed before. It's just amazing.
I probably told this anecdote, but Bottle Rocket was one of those ones we would rent from Blockbuster and like make people watch, because it's kind of hard to watch if you're not, like, back then.
Yeah.
His style was very new and his storytelling was very new, and the characters are not lovable, and at least not on first blush. So it's for like 16 or 17-year-olds who are saying, hey, we're going to hang out and watch this movie.
Yeah.
It was very much like an exercise in like, how little will you enjoy this, and how much will I enjoy, because I love this movie, how much will I enjoy watching you not enjoy this movie? And so like there'd be a level of like torturous schadenfreude while I enjoy something that someone else is not, and then
and not for the first or last time you've ever done that.
Exactly. But then
I still have seen Twilight with you in that same way.
we watched it with the riff tracks though.
No, we watched it for your birthday at a theater, you jerk.
That was nice. But then I think Tenenbaums is probably still the highlight for me. Like if I was going to say, hey, watch a Wes Anderson movie, I would tell someone to start there. And then
And
maybe
Bill Murray's so great in this movie, and both Wilson brothers are so great in this movie. Everybody's just unreplaceable. It's amazing.
So where can people watch it? Criterion on DVD or Blu-ray?
Yeah.
You can buy it on iTunes and Amazon and all that.
And it's
stuff.
streaming on Filmstruck, I'd imagine. 'Cause
It
it's
must
on
be.
Criterion, yeah. All right.
Or you can go to John's house. He's got it on DVD.
Or Blu-ray, or Jocko's got it on Blu-ray too.
Yeah.
Almost. Not yet.
Soon.
Cool.
Excuse me, sir. Can he tell time? Oh, no.
Good pick, Keith.
Great
You're
pick.
welcome.
Very successful pick.
Yeah. I hope we did it justice.
Such a question, there are many possible answers, such as hard work.
Feel I'm alone in this whole of existence. I know it takes time, but I'm losing my persistence. The distance is too far to fetch. So
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the second in our success episodes. I was one of your hosts, John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Yoho and on Instagram at board_ghost. And you can listen to my other podcast at boardghost.com. Keith, where can people find you?
You can find me at earthlingkeith.com.
And you can find me at Beautiful Jules on Twitter or Instagram. How about you, Jocko?
And you can find me everywhere at Jocko Farino with a G. Giaco.
All right. And
Like the Italian way.
Mamma mia.
And again, you can check our show notes on newtoyou.com.
It's me,
Oh, yeah, did I talk about that last time?
I'm
I
not
guess
sure.
I didn't. Whatever. Before we wrap things up, what was new to me this week?
Yeah, what was new to
Yeah,
you?
what was?
That is a good question. Let's see. Did I talk about last time that I went and saw Amy Mann perform?
I haven't heard you discuss it. No.
So Amy Mann has a new album out.
Speaking of P.T. Anderson movies,
Yeah. The Magnolia is the same one.
Yeah.
So she has a new album out. It's pretty good. You've probably heard the single at work. Like I was saying a while back, we've been listening to WFUV.
yeah.
And they play her Goose Snow Cone song pretty consistently, which is about a cat named Goose who was in a cone, and she was in a snowy place in England, and so wrote this thing called looking at the face of a goose snow cone. Do, 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 do. Anyhow, that album came out. She actually wrote a number of the tracks with Jonathan Coulton. And so he was opening for her. We saw them at Town Hall. This was like their third show in, so they were still kind of getting their legs in terms of like banter and stuff. But it was a great show. Jonathan Coulton was really funny and fun. They played together a few times too because there were some songs that like he had worked with her on. She came out for his opening set for a couple songs, and then
Did she sing "I'm Still Alive"?
no, he didn't sing that one. He sang some other good ones though.
Yeah.
I guess she had gone on the Joko cruise too with like him and Ted Leo. So
That makes sense.
yeah, 'cause
she's pals with him.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she kind of started working with him, and now she did play like Wise Up and some of her classic like good tracks, and One Is the Loneliest Number and all that good stuff. But a lot of her,
Did she sing "Voices Carry"?
yes.
Oh,
No, she didn't. Voices Carry.
And they were both featured on an episode of Sonic Exploder, which was one of my previous picks, and where they deconstruct one of the songs on her new album that he helped co-write. So check that out.
And his new album came out not too long ago, or in the next week or so of recording this, but it's a like sci-fi, cyberpunk, futuristic, dystopian record theme.
So is it a concept album?
Yeah, and
Wow.
it has an accompanying graphic novel.
Wow, awesome.
But we didn't pick it up. It was there sort of like early release at the show. We didn't pick it up. I'll kind of wait to see, but the tracks from it were fun. I'm on the fence with like a Jonathan Coulton. I like the parody music stuff and like the nerd, like I think Still Alive and some of those other ones kind of like they live a little bit apart from like the main, I don't know. I think like They Might Be Giants is a little more like metaphor and like poetry in their writing, and not to say he doesn't have poetry and doesn't have like some layers, but I mean, he less so than say like Paul and Storm, who are very much more like parody folk music or nerd rock folk music. I don't know. I'm on the fence about that kind of music writing. Like, you know, I listen to a Leonard Cohen that I like, or someone who's telling like a folk ballad. There's a narrative there. Like I'm not against narrative music, but when it's very like pop culture-y or something, I think it loses, like the metaphors can get lost or just be so on the surface that I kind of it's nice. Shrug.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about his music particularly, but I really like him as a personality and in his collaborations.
Yeah, I actually like his stuff, and I will say, Still Alive, the game that I was introduced to Jonathan Colton through was Portal on I think it was called the Orange Box when it came out on Xbox. When I beat that game and that song came on, I consider that to be definitely one of the top 3 most rewarding video game experiences of my life. When that song came on, it was just blew my mind. I absolutely loved it, and I still can't listen to that song without thinking of it. It was really wonderful.
Yeah,
and so clever, so funny.
It's very cute and fun, and that's why I like it. It's fun and funny.
Here I'm still talking while there's science to do. I just love so many lines.
But yeah, I'm on the fence with it, and like it's sort of like what tier of art is it, and in sort of the scale like of stuff of folkish music.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Right. Do you? How about you, Jaco? Anything on Jonathan Colton?
I'm completely weirdly. I've never heard really anything other than the Portal track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of his big ones, like if you're
Code Monkey was a big one.
Code Monkey was that which it was like on a TV show or something.
I don't know.
Not. I don't know.
No, it was like an internet. It was like an early internet thing, I think.
And then
because he got famous because he did like a song a day type of thing where he was just writing and releasing songs for free
because he was a coder
on a regular. Yeah. He started out in coding. He wanted to get into music, so he was like, you know what? I'm just gonna write a song a day and post it online. He was one of the first to. And he got super successful doing it.
It also helped. He went on a book tour with
John Hodgman.
Yes, John Hodgman, and like really got out there that way.
But a lot of that happened because of that. Like, and basically, it's kind of the 10,000 hours thing. He wrote so many songs that some like Code Monkey like just hit the target audience and just went big.
Yeah, I like Skull Crusher Mountain.
And there's a great. I mean, he's at Gen Con every year we go and he'll play this like concert against humanity that the Cards Against Humanity guys put on. It's the Paul and Storm guys host it, and he's one step up, sort of above the just straight like parody nerd music that like Double Clicks and Paul and Storm and kind of those.
There's a
guys
band called the Double Clicks.
Yeah, they're good. They're cute. They do really good music.
But again, you think that he hovers in this gray area?
I think he's
where it's like take him a little bit seriously, but also he's like making funny stuff.
If you have like They Might Be Giants, I consider sort of like nerd art band, kind of like with like Talking Heads is like the nerd punk art band, right? So if
and like Devo up there too.
Yeah, totally. It's if you had it like it would be like. Talking like Devo, Talking Heads, They Might Be Giants.
So this is your Rushmore. Where's Tom Lehrer?
No. That's like a different spectrum. I think Tom Lehrer doesn't even count anymore. He's toast. He's with Randy Newman over crying. They both have migraines. But like Jonathan Colton's somewhere in between. Like it, so it would almost go like They Might Be Giants, Jonathan Colton, Weird Al. Then like just Paul and Storm or the Double Clicks kind of thing. So it's that sort of.
What about Garfunkel and Oates?
They're with the like
Flight of the Conchords.
They were the Double Clicks.
Tenacious D. What's going on?
Tenacious D and Flight of the Conchords would be up around like Jonathan Colton and Weird Al in that like zone.
Not exactly like a fake song.
Right.
But like definitely an affected. I get it totally.
Yeah.
I get this ranking. Yeah.
That's my kind of world. Like
that's my kind of world.
But like Jonathan Richman, I put him up around like They Might Be Giants, where he's got.
I think he's on a different spectrum.
I don't know. I think he's kind of got like a nerdiness to him.
Oh, certainly, without a doubt. But I don't kind of. I kind of take him out of the.
Oh yeah,
because those people I feel like are.
Don't get me wrong.
He's
not a musician like those people. He definitely just mistakenly fell into making music.
Yeah.
No. I keyed. I saw Amy Mann at Town Hall. Her new record is really good.
Oh, that's where this started, Amy.
Yeah,
Mann. I forgot
that's
about
where her new record's really good. The show's really good. She's actually going to be back in New York in the summer, I think, in June or July. So if you can get tickets to that still, it's worth checking out.
Or if you live somewhere else, she might be
Go
playing
see,
there.
Go see her somewhere else. And if Jonathan Colton's still opening for her, go check him out. Listen to his music too. His new album, we heard a couple tracks from it. I think he has these good singles that really stand out. So check it out.
Yeah, that's the thing about him. He's always got one or two good songs on every record.
Yeah.
It's really good.
That's what my thing is. So next week we are going to roll into another pick. Who's up next week?
I think Jocko.
I'm up next week, and
all right.
I will be talking about Robert Altman's The Player. I'm really excited.
Cool. So
It's about a musician, right?
About a Hollywood exec, and that is rented on iTunes and all of those, Amazon, all those services.
It's also on Criterion,
It is.
right?
It is on Criterion. It's an amazing
It's also on
Blu-ray,
Filmstruck.
and it's streaming on Filmstruck.
It's
Yep.
it's definitely like a film classic. You should go see it if you haven't.
Yeah, it's great.
And there are a lot of the bonus features that are on the DVD on Filmstruck.
Oh, that's
they've done
cool.
one of their
Oh, nice.
digital spines where they sort of give they don't just stream the movie, they also stream all of these other things.
Oh, neat.
That's great because that's one of the things I miss the most about the
DVDs.
disc
Home
era.
media, yeah.
is the,
coming
the
back.
bonus features.
Home video is coming back.
I mean, iTunes has been doing it for a while, but it's because it's a little locked into that ecosystem.
Right.
It's a little different.
Yeah. It's a little
So yeah,
closed.
watch The Player and then join us next week for a little convo
Yeah,
about
for-
it.
Yeah.
episode 3 of Success.
Talk about Andy Dufresne.
Yeah. Jocko, I'm excited for The Player.
Yeah,
It's going to be good. Star-studded.
star-studded.
See y'all next week.
All right. Before we go, you should find out more about the stuff we talked about on the show and the people who we've had on the show at nudyshow.com. You should leave us reviews on iTunes or your favorite listening portal at nudyshow on iTunes.
Be successful at leaving a comment.
If you want to hit us up or follow us on Twitter, we are at nudyshow on Twitter. And yeah, that's the basics on that stuff. It may not be new,
But
maybe it was new to you.
Explosion sound.
Well, everyone knows Custer died at Little Bighorn. What this book presupposes, maybe he didn't.
Everybody knows that.
But I gotta keep moving. This pitiful life is all about the music. 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 This pitiful life is all about the music.
With him together forever, without the limitation of time ever again. So the second coming of the Lord is not dead. They're two separate entities.